Hi, welcome to episode 7 of Knitting with QueerJoe. Um, today's topic is really a note to self to really count my blessings. Um, so last week was rife with opportunities for wallowing in self-pity, and um, many of you know why, but I'll discuss that a little bit. Um, and but there's also really exciting news on the knitting front. I finished a project that I'm so excited to tell you about and to show you pictures of. It's the perfect combination, as far as I'm concerned, of yarn, a specific kind of yarn, and a design pattern that I think is spectacularly good looking together, and I'm really excited about showing you that. So grab your beverage, grab your project, and feel free to sit in it with QueerJoe for a little bit. So I have my latte here this morning, so go ahead and enjoy a little bit. So, note to self, count your blessings. So, as much as I hate hearing it, gratitude does go a long way towards emotional well-being, and especially in times of times when I'm feeling sorry for myself or in the state of self-pity. So deciding on all those things for which I am actually grateful is really an important aspect of making sure that I'm feeling well. Last week, I would have normally been at the men's spring knitting retreat. And as many of you know, the men's spring knitting retreat for me is indescribably exciting, and I anticipate it all year long. I don't know if it was like this for you, but Christmas Eve and the day before Christmas, or actually even the week leading up to Christmas for me as a kid, was always one of high anticipation. It was always so exciting, and I got more and more excited as it got closer and closer. That's exactly what the men's knitting, it's like I'm up there for an entire week on most years. And so I'm always so excited to be going up to Easton Mountain where they host the retreat. It's a beautiful place, and also getting to hang out and spend time with some of the most amazing guys that I've ever met. One of the things that always amazes me is the men's knitting retreat attracts a certain, they self-select in such a way that it attracts an amazing group of guys. It's not always that the men's knitting community has like awesome guys, but for some reason, those guys in the men's knitting community who decide to attend these retreats are some of the most awesome guys on the planet. They're incredibly supportive and affirming and loving of each other, and it's an environment like which I've never seen before. And so, of course, I love that aspect of it. Plus, it's in a really beautiful place, and having been a part of the person that created these events, there's an amazing satisfaction and fulfillment that I have for doing that kind of stuff. And so having to miss that was incredibly disappointing. For the most part, I had reconciled with the fact that I wouldn't be able to do this way back when we first started closing things down, and it became pretty clear that things were not going to be opening up in time for May. It was an awful realization for me to go through back then, and I was really disappointed and sad that we wouldn't be able to do it. I was also a little bit fearful and anxious about all the financial pieces of it, and making sure that the guys were taken care of and things like that. But more of it was about self-pity, I have to say. So one of the things that I decided to do last week, this past Saturday, was put together a virtual meeting with as many of the guys who could come as possible. And so we set up a Zoom meeting and had about 25 guys show up to the Zoom meeting. It was so awesome seeing their faces and getting to be around these guys, and remembering that all they cared about was to make sure that our group was a complete success, even though we couldn't meet in person this year. And that's the kind of thing that I find most amazing about this particular group of guys, that no matter what, they want it to be awesome. And as a result, it often is. I have to say, having written recently a couple posts in various forums, and gotten a lot of pushback on it, and a lot of people trying to cut me off at the knees type of thing. There's an enormous amount of competition in every community oftentimes. And so oftentimes people are trying to push back in ways that, even on my last blog entry, for instance, where I was discussing agreeing with the president in a satirical sort of way, I got a lot of pushback in terms of people saying it's just not funny to want, you know, seniors and children to die, for instance. And I'm not sure whether people purposefully try to look for bad things so that they can kind of try to cut me down, or whether they really heard it that way, they really read it that way, and have grave concerns for children. And but almost always when I'm with this group of guys, they give me the benefit of the doubt, knowing that I only want what's best for them, which is true. And that was true even in that blog post, for instance. I certainly don't want seniors and children to die. I don't care what they think or what they believe or who they vote for. I don't want them to die. What I do want is for a president that cares as much as I do about the people of this state, for instance. And thank God we have a governor who does, in fact, try to do his best as far as our citizens go. Anyway, so this week I've been all about counting the things that I do have. Don't get me wrong. This past week there were times when I just couldn't bring myself, for instance, to set up the Zoom meeting. I should have probably set one up for Thursday, the day we would have started the retreat of last week. But I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I was just like, why bother type of thing. And again, going back to the wallowing in self-pity a bit. And so I was finally able to bring myself back to it when I started realizing all that I do have. Over the last month or so, I've been doing a bunch of daily, not always daily, but pretty regular Zoom meetings with guys who knit, and trying to get back into the community. And I've met some amazing guys in this community. People, I thought I was pretty well connected in the men's knitting community, and especially in a virtual perspective. And it was amazing to me how many guys that I've met that I had never known. In fact, even one of them is a local guy here. He lives literally 20 minutes from where I do. In fact, we almost like park in his driveway when we go for pizza at one of our favorite pizza places. And so it's quite amazing to me that I've been able to even extend that community of guys to this not as good a version of virtual meeting up with men who knit and the men's knitting community. So it was specifically by going through and inventorying those things for which I have a lot of gratitude that brought me back out of it. I have an enormous number of friends. A few weeks ago, in fact, one of those friends, I was bemoaning the fact that I miss the ocean a lot, because I really love water and the ocean. And while I have the Delaware River right by me, and we bike by it quite a bit, it's not quite as nice to me as the ocean. I've always loved the Atlantic Ocean, and as we call it here, the shore. And I miss it a lot. So he happens to live up in Provincetown, and so he actually sent me a minute or so video of just the Atlantic Ocean, the waves coming in. That's all it was. And when I posted that online, it seemed to give a lot of solace to a lot of other people on who follow my posts on Facebook. So that kind of stuff is just awesome to me, that I have friends who will do that and support me in that way. And I'm really grateful for it. So count your blessings. We have an enormous amount of stuff going on, and realizing that a lot of people are going through the same level of self-pity. It's nice when one less person is in that wallowing aspect of it, like I was in large part last week. I highly look forward to the times when we can get together. In fact, we in a hopeful sort of way, we actually open up registration a couple of weeks ago for the men's fall knitting retreat in September up at Easton Mountain in upstate New York. It's going to be September, I forget, towards the middle to end of September, if I remember right, 25th, maybe somewhere around that. And mensknittingretreat.com if you want to check it out, and under scheduled events. And we open up registration, and we already have about 20 guys registered for that, and looking forward to the opportunity to go. And with all the uncertainty, we consider that a pretty healthy registration. We're opening up to a total of 32 guys, so there's only 12 spots left, but I anticipate that we will probably fill it up before September. And assuming that things open up enough in upstate New York to be able to bring together about 50 guys, including volunteers and staff and attendees, in a place from people who are out of state and sometimes even out of country, we're hopeful that that will still happen. We're not sure either, but we're making contingency plans as well, and making sure that folks know that we're including the uncertainty and people that register. In fact, making sure that they understand that they can get a full refund or transfer to a different retreat if they care to do that as well. So all in all, my life is very good. I've been able to continuously bike. I am well fed and well taken care of by Thaddeus. Thank God for him. And even silly things like a lot of people talk about how, the refrigerator is their best friend during times of sequestering. And honestly, we've been, both Thaddeus and I have been very good in terms of our eating habits. We've been eating well and still actually losing a little bit of weight, which has been awesome. I've been trying to lose just a few pounds over the course of the last almost a year, actually. And it finally fell off in this past couple of weeks. And I don't mean to brag, it really is just an inventorying of those things for which I am very grateful. And I have plenty of yarn, I have plenty of friends, and I have plenty of opportunities to reach out in terms of virtual ways like Zoom meetings to be able to talk to a lot of those friends. So I'm very fortunate in many ways. And while I dreadfully miss the fact that I wasn't able to be with a lot of those guys last week, I'm still grateful in the thought, knowing that eventually I will be able to hug each and every one of those guys and revel in the times that we can spend together. So that's my suggestion to myself, and feel free to steal that if you'd like, but it is to count your blessings, because gratitude does help. And so on to current knitting. So most of you know that I've been working on the Close to You shawl. Justina, the designer, has created a shawl that's free on Ravelry. I'll post a link in comments so that you can certainly get to that. It's, from what I understand, I've never made the hitchhiker shawl, but from what I understand, it's very similar to that in terms of the overall design. And then combined with that, I also happen to have ordered recently the unique fingering yarns from Earth, URTH yarns, and their kind of self-striping or self-patterning yarns are just gorgeous when it comes to the shawl. Now, you kind of saw it in the last picture on the blog that I had of it, but sorry, I disappear a little bit with this virtual background. But this, and I'm going to show actual pictures of it so you don't have to look at me doing it. This shawl came out just so beautifully. The Perfect Pearl, which are the ones whose website I purchased the unique fingering yarns from, are doing a kit that uses, basically it's just the cost of 2 hanks of the unique fingering yarns. And so the pattern itself calls for just one ball of 100 grams of fingering weight yarn, and you could probably, and that's what I did. I actually made mine, and you'll see in the pictures that it definitely is a decent size scarf or shawlette, if you will. But it looks great in a number of different ways, and it came out a perfect size as far as I'm concerned. Um, they're suggesting that they would like it a little, most of the people who made it thought that they would like it a little bit bigger, and so it would require more than one skein of the fingering. I might do that as well, but most of these things, I think I'm going to look at um, keeping it to one skein, because I thought that it was a perfectly beautiful accent scarf and a scarf to keep you warm when it came to that. As far as current knitting goes, I'm actually working on currently the exact same pattern using a yarn from Zauberball. It's Crazy Zauberball, which is a sock fingering weight yarn that most of you know about. I was thinking, I've had this yarn for quite a while, and I was thinking I should mix this yarn with, where'd that ball go? Here it is. So I had these two yarns, and I thought, well, this would be a perfect garter striped lengthwise scarf, just going from this to this. And so I started knitting it up, and I cast on 340 stitches and started knitting just plain garter stitch in blacks, whites, and grays in one ridge, and then multicolored unique fingering on the next ridge. And after about 2 inches, I just hated it. I thought it was just ugly. So I ripped it all out, and I decided instead to just go back to this close to you shawl pattern. And I'll show pictures of this so you don't have to look at it through the virtual background as well. And I am so much happier being back with this close to you shawl. By the way, one of the things I really like about the close to you shawl is it's really 2 rows that you have to memorize. And it's very simple to remember. I don't even have to look at the pattern anymore. I could literally from scratch make one of these close to you scarves with shawls without even referring to the pattern. It's that simple and easy. The only thing you have to keep track of is every 10 rows you do a specific new technique to create the kind of ridged pattern on the edge. But overall, it's a very simple thing to do. So that's where I've been this past week. How have you been doing? Things going all right for your stay-at-home orders and your going out public to wearing masks and keeping yourself healthy and safe and all that stuff? Feel free to leave a comment on things that you're grateful for. I would love to hear that. I would also love it if you'd make any comments about what you'd like to see perhaps in the Knitting with QueerJoe episodes, and or certainly like and or subscribe to the video if you haven't done that already. If you haven't seen some of the previous episodes of Knitting with QueerJoe, shortly in the I think it's in the upper left-hand part of the screen is going to be a link to the playlist for all the previous episodes of Knitting with QueerJoe. One of my favorite memes that I've seen out on Facebook is nobody in their right mind would sit down and watch an 8-hour movie. And yet if you break it down into 1 hour, 8 1-hour episodes, people binge watch all 8 in one sitting. So I'm hopeful that people will start to binge watch things like Knitting with QueerJoe. Hope you're doing well. Please feel free to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. And thanks again for joining me for Knitting with QueerJoe.